All right, so today I have with me Andrew Lopez of Elevated Shorts, and we're going to talk about video and how video impacts with branding, right? So, my next question kind of like totally follows on the coattails of what we were talking about, and love the ideas of, in branding, we're always about the story, telling the story. So, we're talking about the engagement is like the reaction that we want from the video, right? So, we're telling the story and then we're getting the engagement. So, how does the video complement a marketing mix? I mean, obviously, we kind of already touched on the engagement side, but what else would you say is really strong from the video?
The power of video for me, video is the best vessel. And I think, again, when you go back to video, even a year ago, before our situation that we've been all in, video to me also used to be a looky loo. It used to be like, hey, I'm doing this, but it also used to be that image, especially where we live in Southern California. We're so close to LA and Hollywood. And it was all about like, oh, they got a marketing campaign with video, like they got money to spend. It was always kind of that perception, right? Whether you're a realtor or whether you're a fractional CFO, whatever it may be, it was all kind of this like allure. It was a nice to have. It was sexy. Like, oh, video, we gotta have it. But now, because we're all virtual, to me, video is the best tool. It's the vessel. It's how you can leverage a conversation. So sharing this episode out with you and me, or sharing elevated conversations, to me, I look at it as the vessel. It's two people having a conversation, or even if you're just talking to your iPhone, people can see, feel, hear the mannerisms and understand that person better than something in writing and or something a picture. So video now in the marketing mix, I'm not saying you have to do it solely, but that's the best way you can connect with someone. So again, if you have a video of yourself saying, hey, I'm here talking about brand, here's the important tips of branding, you might
Yeah.
move somebody in Boston, Massachusetts, or you might move somebody in Aarhus, Denmark. You never know like how that works, but I think you can resonate. You can hear someone's voice. You can see how they talk. When there are videos of me, you can tell that I talk with my hands and I'm very expressive. It's something that you can feel. So I always say, again, I'm not a marketer. To my dear marketing and branding friends like yourself and some of my closest friends across the world, they would have a better answer of the full mix of what to do. But using video, I always use it as the best vessel. It's the best vessel to keep conversations going or to express who we are with our business or with ourselves.
Well, I love that answer, and I do agree with you. Although there is some, I guess, discrepancies on what is the best, right? Is it obviously you kind of touched on like the professional videos, which is now we're kind of all doing these Zooms, and then obviously as of late, everyone's doing these Facebook Live, Instagram Live, like all these like live clips, right, via their cell phone or laptops. What do you say about the difference between that live super raw, like dogs barking in the background, everything happening like as it's happening in real life versus just even doing like a Zoom recording like this, which was scheduled on this day at this time with this person for 15 minutes?
What's hard about live, I enjoy live, but what's hard is you can say like, hey, Andrew and I are going live, you know 10 a.m. Pacific time on Monday the 22nd. You could do it, but it's harder to, I think, just you just never know what you're going to get. So I guess that's the beauty of it. I've thought about doing lives in the past. I thought about doing Reinvention Daily in the past, live, like, hey, everybody, here we are, tune in. But the thing with lives for me is they tend to be always long. So when people, hey, we're going to do a live together, like I've been on a couple recently and I've loved the experience, but I didn't need to talk for 45 minutes. Like I'm someone where I'll give and I'll share, but I'm best when you get me like this. I'm best when you get me one on one or you get me, drinking coffee. Like I'm expressive, but I prefer it to be kind of in a different setting. So again, I'm not knocking on anyone that does the lives out there. Just for me as Andrew, I just never, I didn't think I could do a live for 5 minutes because it's too short. It's live, but at the same time, it's like I feel like lives always have to go a little bit longer. But again, it depends on what you do. Some of the most powerful live conversations that I see on LinkedIn are just people that are doing some very moving, powerful stuff. Life coaches that are saying, We are going to go deep on the power of anxiety. So you could talk about anxiety for 45 minutes and have people leaving with tears in their eyes, but for me, when it came to Reinvention Daily, like we didn't, it didn't make sense to have people just talk about the one thing they reinvented in their business for 45 minutes. So if that answers the question, but I guess for me, it's more so just how you utilize it. I mean, it's everything in life, right? It's how you utilize the live. If you did it with multiple people, I've seen that too. That's probably the most powerful. If you kind of do it live, like an Instagram live, where you can have somebody and then you can take them off, add somebody else.
Yeah, I love those. Those are so fun. And I think too, it also keeps, at least for me, I'm like more engaged. I pay attention more and I'm more present, like in the moment of like what's going on in the conversation. After a few minutes of some of them, I definitely find myself wandering. I'm, like most people, I'm thinking about my to-do list. I'm thinking about what I'm doing tomorrow or, and then I come back, but I missed, like 30, 45 seconds while I, spaced out there.
Yeah, it's like you relate because it's live for these people. So that's the appreciation of the art that I have for the live, is just anything happens, whether it's live television or a live, interview like this, anything can happen and anything can go. But I've also had, some friends that have had bad experiences on a live where like a question gets asked that they weren't ready to answer. And you're kind of just like, okay, maybe we're not going to go there now. On a recording, you can have a bad question and you could cut it in post and you can kind of say, hey, I love the interview, but don't run that last question you asked me. Like, you threw me off guard. So I've seen like clips, or I've heard of bad experiences where people are like, yo, like we were trying to vibe and we were trying to flow and just a bad question got asked. And it was like, and everyone's kind of watching with crickets, like, what happens now? I guess again, it comes down to the message or the what you're trying to do, what you're trying to accomplish with it, the conversation again that you're trying to start with the live. If you're trying to get people all across the world and involved in a topic, it's a beautiful thing. The two people just jumping on, kind of just BSing for 45 minutes, like it works, but it might not. You could take that 45 minutes and cut it into a bunch of small pieces and it'd be powerful. But yeah, that's kind of how I feel about lives. I appreciate it. I like it. I think it works for a lot of people. It's just never been something that me as Elevated Shorts has ever ventured on.
I love that you kind of phrased your answer the way you did, because this is where, like, we talk about strategy, right? So even though video might be a component of the strategy, or the Instagram live might be a component of that social media strategy, it's not the whole thing, right? Like there's many components that create this brand story. So I loved your answer. I thought it was spot on.
Oh, thank you. But that's anything in life. We all have, I think there's no one specific way. I think that was the thing that shook us all, I'll say, when it came to COVID-19, all of us going back to the ground floor. That's where we're all at right now.
We were all reset at the same time.
Exactly. It's something that we all can relate to. We all had to go back inside, rethink things. You were on Reinvention Daily, and I know you didn't have to say, hey, I reinvented my business, but you reinvented yourself as Bridget. Like, that was a powerful message as is. And that was the beauty of it. Even though it was recorded, it was like you took the platform to say, hey, I'm a graphic designer. I do brand stuff. I can sit in my room anyway and do it. But I reinvented myself. I started running more. I got more healthy. Like, that's a reinvention. But you used it to the way that you need it. Same thing with me. I laugh with some of my branding friends and some of my close marketing friends, and it's always like, you got to do these 18 things to have the right brand. But I'm someone where my friend, I'll shout out my good friend Mary out in Denmark, and she's been an absolute sweetheart, and she's taken my show and done it, Reinvention Europe, based out of Denmark. And I laugh with her sometimes. She's like, Andrew, to do this and that, this would be great. But I'm like, Mary, is my brand still good? Even though I don't have those 17 steps. And she'll kind of look back and be like, okay, yeah, you're right. So it all depends on where you're going. And that's the beauty of it. So I always say, it's just whatever we do, as long as we have our art, right? We all create our art in some way, shape, or form. It's how we communicate that art is where the real beauty is. And I just chosen to communicate my art, again, through a 3-minute show. And it might be some other way or some other company that does the same thing as I do, and they do it 10 times better. But to my knowledge, it's how I communicate my art and my brand.
Well, and to your point about like your friend Mary, and again, going back to like branding and the strategy behind like whatever that is you're just being authentic to you. And for her, she might need those 17 steps, but for you, it's like, no, this is all I might need three. Like whatever is your authentic self, you might not need those 17 things, but she may feel more comfortable, and that may be her brand, and her authentic self might take those 17 steps.
Mm-hmm. Oh, absolutely. And I just meant with her, it was like her helping her clients. Her client
Yeah.
base was different in the sense of, she's also out in Europe and it's different in the US. So again, I'm not picking on her. She's one of my dearest friends, but it was more so just those conversations with just having
Yeah.
like, hey, this works for me. There might be 10 more things I could do, but right now, this is where I'm at. It's all about meeting people where they're at. I think that's the big challenge that we've had to face as business owners too, is we want to push our services. We want to do this and we want to be the yes man or the yes woman. Oh, we could do this, we could do that. But right now you have to meet people where they're at. So it might not be the 7 services that we would traditionally do. It might start with 1 or 2. So that's been the big thing with me, is with the shows and with the expression, I'm meeting people where they're at. And that I've noticed is a powerful thing, because you can't just be like, hey, you got to meet me here. I think that's been
Mhm.
the difference with Elevated Shorts, is I've just decided to meet people where they're at again. I'm not telling people, hey, to be like me, you got to come up to my level. If you're down here, let's figure out the solution together from here. So it's, I work with a lot of life coaches, so I've taken that lesson from them. But to be
Very
like,
wise insights. Especially, when we talk about, branding, that's, you got to you figure out where your audience is, right? And then you have to meet your audience where they're at. So, I know that's really difficult for some people to kind of wrap their head around, but at the same time, that's not who you're going to be in 5 years. That's just where your starting point is, right? So if your audience is here, let's start there, and then like figure out how to get to the next level, if that's the goal.
absolutely. And you know that, I think, from you being a
Mm.
branding expert, it's that same thing. There might be 5 things that you want someone to do, but they might not be ready to do that. And there's a
Right.
phase to it. So you, as the branding person, could be the hero and say, hey, let's get this done first. Then Q2, we're going to hit this step. If you came in hot and we're like, hey, we're going to hit all these Q1, like you got to do it or you're going to be wrong. People are going to be real. It's like people are very receptive right now. I've noticed, like, people again want to be involved in things, but people are also a little shell shocked. Like, you can't just hit people with things like you might have been able to a year and a half ago. So it's,
Yeah.
it's that dance, it's that bob and weave, it's the movement.
Mhm.
Everything is constant movement, and it's just how we move along in someone else's dance, or someone else's scheme, as I say.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Andrew, for your time and your amazing insights.